a very special guest today with us. We've got Alex here, all the way down from Wales. Thank you for visiting us. Been great to see you today.
That's awesome to be up here. So been a great day.
Yeah, and a bit of a legend in the sort of your journey to Real Agency Group, but also your journey into eXp and your success after what you're hearing from Adam and the relationship you two have. I'd love to dig a bit into that. So
Yeah.
So what is your estate agency's story? Where did it start?
Well, like many people, I kind of fell into it, coming up 15 years ago, and pretty much worked my way through your very traditional model. Because back then, if you wanted to get into agency, you went and worked for a local high street operation. Self-employed agency wasn't a thing. It was just very much, there might be a few models, like Purple Bricks were kind of just about in the ether, but it wasn't quite as it is today. And so very much had to go on that journey of working my way up. And of course, you get to certain positions and you decide to move on. So yeah, worked my way up to a kind of senior sales manager for a company, looking after my own branch, but also helping grow the business with the business owner, which was great. Thoroughly enjoyed it, but always felt there was something a bit more out there. And I'd always dreamed of owning my own agency, but obviously, as Adam knows, as a business owner of 14 years, it's not a cheap thing to do. And for years, obviously, it was very much that you were either an agent working for someone or you were a business owner. And to do that, you had to open a high street office. You couldn't just be an agent.
Something I would like to interject there, actually.
Yeah.
When I first met you was at an event, I don't know if you remember, in the late, I think I met you at the Guild.
Oh yeah,
Years ago. But then our first time we spent some quality time together. I was up in
Windermere.
Lake District. And I was shocked that you wasn't the business owner. I thought you was a business partner because you treated your employed role like it was your own. You gave that impression to me and obviously everyone else in the room. But when I said, "Oh yeah, so how long have you been in business?" You were like, "Oh no, I'm the manager." And I was like,
manager, yeah.
and I was like, "Really?" Like,
Yeah.
the ethos of the work ethic and the.
I think that's, yeah, I mean, that comes down to, I think I've always, I guess the way I looked at things was treat it as if it was your own business. And I'd always done that. Even when I was a sales negotiator, I kind of still did it and gave that perception. I used to get that even for the previous companies I worked for, because at one point I was going out doing the appraisals, I was going out doing the viewings, I was doing everything. And people would say, "Oh, so you the manager?" I'd be like, no, I'm just the senior sales neg. But "Oh, you're not the manager of the branch, or it's not you're nothing to do with the business." So I think, but that, I guess, obviously really drove into me that, if I can do it for other people, I must be able to do it for myself. And that was something that was always niggling me in the background. And that's where, I guess, as time went on, and the more, I guess, as you saw the self-employed, I saw other agents going out and doing it, and you hear about the commissions people are in, and you see the journeys they're on and the businesses they're building, it kind of niggles away at you thinking, could I be doing the same thing?
So using the principle of people tend to do things for one of two reasons: to avoid pain or to gain pleasure. The turning point for you to step away from employment to self-employment, was that because it was, inverted commas, too painful to carry on doing it, or was it you just knew that's where I want to go?
I would say it was a bit of both. There was always this drive to go out there and have my own brand and have my own business. As I said earlier, it's something I was always wanted to do, but in the past it was definitely too expensive, because you thought, I can't afford to go and open an office, because if you open an office, you need staff, and from day one you're up against it, and then especially in this day and age with the cost of everything, a lot of businesses that are opening up on the high street from day one, I can't imagine how much it's cost me money to just do it self-employed without working from my home office, let alone thinking I got a branch. So that was always a blocker. But also, I think it was, for me, it was the kind of the stresses and strains of obviously being involved in the previous business that I was associated with, that I love working there, I love the people, but I was running around, I was helping other offices, I was doing valuations myself, whilst also managing my own team. And like I said, when you're seeing commissions come through, and I can remember one of the last ones I had there, was like a 1.5 million pound house, and the commission was, it was a £20,000 fee. I think my cut out of that was like 1,200 quid. And I know that, okay, I was on a salary and I know that I had other benefits, but when you look at that, you think, bloody hell. And it was a lot of work. The client was quite difficult. Hopefully not watching this, but obviously,
They'll find you.
I don't
They'll find
really
you.
bit.
20 grand help. They'll be saying the 20 grand help, though, isn't it?
But when you looked at that and you thought, yes, okay, I've got the comfort of a salary and everything, but I think one of the biggest misconceptions you can make is that people say that, I'm more secure in an employed role, and the thing is, I think in some ways I feel more secure now because I've got
That's really
control
interesting.
over my business.
That's a really big statement.
And I think that because if the market turned tomorrow, I could adapt my business to how I need to run it. Or if my life changed tomorrow, I could say, right, family members and I had that autonomy to move it around. Whereas when you're employed, you can't suddenly just turn around to your boss and say, oh, by the way, some things are going on. Can I suddenly work less hours or
That's
more
really
hours?
interesting you saying that.
And I was thinking in the future, I'm going to be having kids. I don't have kids now. And I thought that's the next thing. And I thought, well, I'm working in a town almost 45 minutes away from where I live, doing that 5-6 days a week. If I have a kid, that's not going to be flexible with school. And so you start thinking about all these things. And the more I came round to it, I kind of really felt I wanted to go back to my hometown and do self-employment. And there was discussions with the company I was with about doing it, but obviously naturally I looked out there at what else was available, and just kind of really felt in the end that certainly eXp for me was the right model. I don't think there is a right model I think everybody has a right model. eXp for some, there are other options out there, could be part of a team, but for me that felt like the right option to allow me to, I guess, bring my vision to life of how I wanted to do it. So that was kind of really the final push, was just thinking I've got to do this.
And how, at the time of this recording, how long have you been a self-employed agent?
Started September 23, so mid-September 23. So literally
Was it January 25 now?
Yeah,
it must have been, a couple of months before that. That's when I first started talking about it. Yeah, and we had probably had a conversation. And I always knew 100%, even before you made that leap, that one day you were going to go after that. And you must know. I think it comes down to, I think Adam Bay said it to you before, wasn't he? It's mindset, and it's.
Well, Alan Day said to me, I asked him the question, who damn they heads up eXp in the UK. I remember asking him, why is it that some people go on to make success of this and others don't? And I expected him to say, oh, there are loads of reasons, but he said, it's very simple. You only need two things to make a success of this, but you have to do both. One, you have to follow the system and do it. It's there, and you have to do the stuff.
Yeah.
And if you don't do that, as an estate agent, it's not going to happen. And secondly, you have to have the right mindset. And he said, of the two, the mindset's the most important.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing for me. I guess having worked in the businesses that I've worked in, I was, my previous employer, I was really lucky to have, he was a good mentor and put a lot of time and train his own eyes. But I also spent a lot of my own time, because I'd go out there, I was listening to podcasts, I was watching YouTube videos, I was signing up to membership programs.
Phoning me up, whilst picking my brain.
Exactly. We'd always be, and since going self-employed, one of the first things I did was just starting to reach out to the people within eXp that had done well. So I was thinking, right, they're absolutely smashing it. They've icon this many times. I say, look, what do you do? How does it work in your business? And I think it's learning from other people. And I think a lot of people going self-employed, I think perhaps obviously either go into it for the wrong reasons, or they go into it perhaps obviously with a view that it might be easier than they think, but they're not willing to put the work in. But I think
it's very interesting point, actually, because you just won your award-winning agent and production, and it's not been all easy, is it?
No.
And it's very easy from outside of you in your employed role. You're looking at all these success stories and the award winners. You think, oh, I'm going to do that. It must be easy. So it's not, is it?
So what was it like? So your partner, so you leave, you go to your partner. I'm going to set up on my own. How did that go down?
From a supportive point of view, she's been my biggest cheerleader. Obviously, she had doubts and concerns because her parents had tried to start businesses in the past, and I guess she'd seen the bad side when it didn't go well, and so she was obviously always very wary, and it was a bit like, well, look, you've got the comfortable salary, and you could just go straight in as maybe you could get partner in that business. You don't have to do it. And I thought, well, no, I want to grow something that's my own. But she will be the first to admit now, looking back, like, you 100% have done the right thing. And it was just at the time she had those doubts. But also, I was very fortunate from a financial point of view that she had that comfortable salary that could keep things ticking over, because of course, there was investment. I had some money that I could put into it. but very quickly the credit cards came out. But
Yeah.
for me, even though, yes, you could argue, you know, yes, it's putting yourself in that position where, you know, if you can't pay that money back, obviously you're going to be in a bit of a sticky situation. But I knew it had to work. It had to work. But that's because, a bit like going back to you saying about the process and the systems, I knew what had to be done.
Yes.
And I followed that path. And I go, look, there's all these other agents, and there's all these agents that I follow on social media that I've seen them be successful. So if I just do what they're doing,
And
it has to work.
You trust that
Trust the process.
Yeah, just trust it.
Trust the
But
process.
it's more than that, isn't it? Because you're giving it away a little bit when I was listening to you. I think it's another important word in success when you make it is that you are curious. You have a curious mind, so you're reaching out to people. What's Adam Mackay doing? What's it? Yeah, it sounds like you didn't just sort of put your head down and work. You also used all the resources. You probably spoke to a lot of people. You asked questions of people. You probably annoyed a few people. You know, but that curiosity is it's not a word that you hear much, but I think it's a really powerful word when you're doing something new. You've got to. If you lose that curiosity, you miss a lot.
Well, a great example is I reached out to an agent who, again, I'd been listening to a podcast that Simon Gates done. If anybody's out there, I definitely recommend, especially with self-employed. Yeah, you know, great podcast and filled with a whole range of self-employed agents, non-self-employed business owners. But someone on that mentioned about putting boards out around the town and that kind of thought. So I reached out to them while they started my business, and you know, it was great that even though they're outside of their own business, they gave up their time. And I think in some ways people are kind of quite happy that if you reach out, you know, it's like you're asking for help. And he said, you know, and he was like, I want to see you do well, you know. And that's the thing, he was almost happy that I was contacting, and he was like, yeah, I'd love to share it with you. And you know, and he told me about it. So this is what we do. Make sure they say hello Abergavenny. You want to, you know, really, you know, get them around. This is how you reach out to your friends and family. Have them in. By the way, I don't know if from a legal point of view you're allowed to put balls around your town and your friends and family's houses, but it worked, and it was something that actually, it was that little nugget.
That's really interesting. I'm putting my sporting head on now, but that's really interesting what you just said, because so many people, when they don't like to ask someone who's done it before, because they don't, you know, a bit embarrassed to ask. What they don't realize is, you know, I'm an old retired athlete. I love being asked.
Yeah.
I love to be able to share what I used to do with any athlete if they could ask me the question. And I think that's the real thing. Don't be scared to ask people who have gone before you, because most people are happy to help.
Yeah.
Well, and it's not just.
Well, you're a great example of that.
Yeah. But I think it's not just things like marketing and all that. I think, and it kind of comes back round to what you're saying about, you know, times it's not been easy. You know, there have been a lot of dark times in this journey of me in this business, where, you know, having people like yourself that I've picked them up. And, you know, jokingly, I think you said the other day, you're like, I've just come up from my mind coach and feeling positive. I was like, well, I'm going to bring you right back down. I have had the day from hell. And I was like,
Last night.
I was like, why did you? I said, well, I'm sorry that you just come out all motivated, because I'm going to bring you right back down again. But it's having, like I said, at the end of it, it's okay to have those moments. And every business owner, it doesn't matter whether you're an estate agent or whatever your industry, and everybody has those moments. But that's where you need to rely on the people around you. And I think that was because a lot of people say to me, look, oh, you're such a good agent. Why didn't you just open up your own business? Just open up your own thing. Why do you need to be with a broker or thing? And when you kind of explain to people that I'm lucky enough to have that support network of other agents that I know I could pick the phone up to and say, hey, I'm struggling a bit at the moment. What did you do when things went bad?
And when you phoned me up that night and was like, you know, I've just had my best ever completion month.
Yeah.
I've got this money in the bank I didn't have for 6 months ago. We're going on 2 lovely holidays. And I was like, I knew this call was coming, Alex.
Yeah.
You know, I'd walked in your shoes, 14 years ago. And I did, after that first 12 months, when I gave it my all, when you're living off adrenaline and you know it's got to work, your back's against the wall. When you know that you've sort of done the hard bit, the first year of business is the hardest year. You was always going to hit that down, so weren't you?
Well, like you said, it's because I hadn't set new goals.
Yeah,
because I said, right, I want to get this much money in the bank. I want to have this many sales. I want to do all these things. I want to go to eXp Con. And then all of a sudden those things have happened. And I was like, oh, and I didn't buy.
He was on the phone. I remember I was driving home, and a lot of time we used to speak. And I got to my turning to where I live, and I carried on driving around the, but doing the loop, and I kept on going. I was thinking people are going to be putting stuff on the Facebook group. There's a car driving past my house, but I'm like, there's a guy from Wales phoning me up on the edge. But no, but and we had that chat. I was like, you just got to have new goals. So we're going to go to America, and we're going to have a great time in America.
Yeah.
You're going to have some time with your wife. We'll set some new goals, and then you'll be pretty sound.
No, it was but I think that's the thing is having, being able to reach out to people who, like I said, if there's a particular element of something that you want to know more about, it's knowing who to go to. And this is something we talk about all the time, that different people will have different skill sets, and like yourself, probably from a mindset point of view.
Roger was sharing earlier, wasn't he? Like you had a major injury, and your athletics career looked like it could have ended.
It's the mindset is mindset. The vehicles are different. You're on the vehicle of the self-employed estate agent, and myself and Steve Backley is involved with this. We're on the vehicle of trying to win Olympic medals and sport. We all have different vehicles, but the mindset can be translated across. It's really interesting listening to you about the word that I keep thinking when listening to the way you're talking and how you sort of achieve, and then it doesn't feel where do you go now is unique to feel you're growing. We're all on this growth journey, and actually for people with the right mindset, it doesn't actually stop, and that's where you need to keep pushing, moving on to the next thing. And is that why you're so excited about being part of Real Agency? Because it gives you the opportunity then to support other people and to help other people grow.
Well, for me, I mean, there's a phrase that I don't know whether I come up with it or it's a hybrid of what other people have said, but when I started the business, I had this mantra of be bigger, be better, be bolder.
Yeah.
So it's always looking for ways that I can be that 1% better, to be the bigger version of myself, that perhaps obviously is that more amplified version of Alex amplified, I call it. And then to be bolder is to do things that perhaps the shyer, quieter Alex would be terrified of doing. So doing things like obviously being part of Real Agency has given me that platform to get involved with events, to help other agents, because I've got so much to give. I love the idea of helping other people, and it's been able to contribute. And I think when we've talked about the different things we can bring, Adam, like I said, for you, obviously you've done that kind of agency journey, you've owned businesses, you've run that. I couldn't tell someone how to run a successful high street branch, but for what I can, I guess obviously what I feel I can give other agents is that I've laid those kind of breadcrumbs and laid a trail of that kind of first year of self-employment, of going out on your own, taking that big step from that cushy salary to literally earning nothing potentially for 6 to 9 months. So I think for me, being able to help maybe others and share that journey and inject that into them, what everybody else can bring within Real Agency, I think is so valuable. And obviously being able to come to things like this, like today we've just obviously spend the day at John Savage's event, and to be able to take part in things like that as well. And I think for people feeling that self-employment could be lonely, it's a great way to show people it doesn't have to be. You don't have to be lonely. You don't have to choose to be lonely. Yes, you could tie yourself to a desk and not speak to anyone. But I think in the long run, I think you probably end up doing yourself more damage. I think being able to step away for an afternoon or join a webinar or whatever it may be, just come to an event or even just get on the phone to
have a round of golf,
or round of golf, just something, just to remind you that you're not alone in this journey. And actually, I think that, from agency, regardless of whether you're self-employed or like I said, you're a business owner, I think sometimes even then there are business owners that are lonely.
Do you know, it's a really interesting thing you're saying. I'm just, as you're speaking, I'm thinking about, even now, I was an athlete many, many years ago, but even now, when on the sort of few times a year where I'll get together with a group of old athletes, either we created it, arranged it, always just happened at an event. There's maybe a group of the old names. I won't reel out the names, but they're pretty well known names. And you're sitting there and you haven't sat around a table for years and you're talking about the old days. You can have conversations with those people that you couldn't have with anyone else because you've had a shared experience. And that's the same when you're part of a group of estate agents. There's a language that you guys have and an understanding that you have, maybe different journeys. As you said, your journey is slightly different, but you have that common bond of we are estate agents and we're not just estate agents, we're entrepreneurial estate agents. We want to change the industry. It's just great to sit back and watch it. And it's just like me when I'm with a group of athletes. You have a different language and you're talking the same language. And when you take that step from employment to self-employment, suddenly that's gone. Because if you perceive that you're on your own, you no longer got those people to talk to. What we're trying to do is say, no. There's a group here. You can keep this going.
And like I said, we've all got different skill sets and things. And I think there's so much correlation when we talk about sports and agency. There are so many correlations. We keep coming back round to it. But I think, you know, the other side of kind of real agency, what I kind of loved about it, especially obviously with Adam, is that, you know, me and Adam have said we met back in Windermere years ago, and we've always had that talked about how can we work together, how could we do some, but obviously our businesses, our areas are 4.5 hours apart. So obviously, you know, that wasn't going to work. And, you know, so I think obviously with us, obviously naturally we're both part of eXp, which kind of brought us closer together. And I guess obviously then since then we've attended UK conferences, we've been to Miami, so we've spent more time together. So it's almost given us that opportunity to spend time together. And obviously from that, obviously this is now kind of as a scrap bit of paper written down saying we need to have a group, we need to try and find a way. It's actually allowed us to work together, even though we're completely separate and still running our own entities. It's still feeling like we're part of something that's exciting and growing, and it's inspiring other people to do the same. And I love that. I absolutely love the idea that, you know, in the process of also growing my own dream, we could be inspiring others to take that step, whether it be a business owner looking to move their business into a more modern method, or like kind of a more modern setting. You know, they're looking at all these agencies losing their best staff to self-employment, thinking, well, I want to do something like that. Could I have my own model? And then there's the other side of it, agents who are thinking, I want to build my own dream. I want to grow. I want my name above the door or on a board. So it's great to think that, you know, we can all bring something a little bit different. And I
don't know if you like, you know, when we get together like we have done today, lunch, it was great, wasn't it? Everyone's bringing little snippets, different ideas. We had a few ideas just formed from that little lunch meeting, and we all live in different parts of the country, but we've all got one vision, which is just great.
And that's the thing, it doesn't have to be big events. I think sometimes, you know, you can go to these big events, and I know it can be quite daunting, but I think even for people like listening to a podcast, just literally, I'd always try to find a bit of time if I can to listen to something. It's weird the little nuggets you take away for things, sometimes without realizing you've done it. And it's like earlier on, after John's session, you know, we were adding little bits in, and it was great because John said, "Oh, I like that." You know, he's just done a talk about it, and it's just like, "Oh, I like what you just said." And it's amazing that, you know, we can all take those little bits from each other, and we can go away and implement it into our businesses, and what could be a really small thing could be massively implemental and monumental for that growth within your own personal and professional life. So
that growth mindset, everyone's got that. Around that table, we've all got a growth mindset.
So guys, you met at Windermere. You've been to Miami. Where are you going this summer together?
Well, Barcelona.
Wow. Hopefully other members of the group will be joining you.
If my wife didn't know, they do now.
And we're sharing the room.
Cheers, Alex. It's been absolutely great.
Thank you for having me here. All the best. Cheers.